One of my favorite pastimes, especially for solo road trips or travel, is memorization games. So, like, while memories fade, so I'm probably not as good at some of these anymore, but at one point I could tell you every single Best Picture winner, every Heisman Trophy winner, all Super Bowl champs and MVPs, and I can name every country and its capital. In fact, I became so obsessed with the trivial geography memorization game that I bought national flag flashcards last year to teach myself every country's flag. I'm good at trivia nights, folks, so sign me up. But maybe not who you would call if you're looking for like a raucous party. Anyway, these flashcards were super great and a lot of fun for me, but the thing that really hit home to me was just how deeply difficult and political something like a flag or a capital city or a border really is. I mean, I knew this, but flags really drive it home. You take, for example, the Republic of Artsakh, a disputed area within Armenia and Azerbaijan, an area in active conflict. Their flag is almost identical to the Armenian flag, three horizontal stripes, red, blue, and gold from top to bottom. That's the Armenian flag. But Artsakh's flag, it has a V-shaped, like zigzag stripe of white across it to denote the fact that they are the tract of land within Armenia's borders that does not belong to Armenia. And I thought of the significance of borders and flags again when watching Richard Stanley's 1992 cult classic Dust Devil, which takes place in Namibia near the South African border. I can tell you that Namibia is a southwestern African country. I know its shape by sight. Its capital city is Windhoek. Their flag is diagonal blue, red, and green stripes with a golden sun in the upper left corner. What I didn't know until watching this movie and looking it up afterwards is that Namibia did not gain full sovereignty and independence from South Africa until 1990. This is why we call shit like memorization games trivia. This movie is about a demonic spirit moving through a man's body, but it's also about something much more. Hi, Cecil.
Hi, Jeffrey.
What's your favorite flag? Just flag
Ooh.
in general. Doesn't have to be a
Um,
country.
I think the New York State flag is pretty cool.
Oh, really? Just like the
Yeah,
seal, the
yeah,
Excelsior
yeah.
sort
I
of
mean,
thing.
Excelsior. Come on, that's like the best motto a state could have.
It's pretty good. Yeah, Excelsior is pretty excellent. Um, I was talking about flags last year with our friend Janina, and we were on Zoom. She lives in London, and we're on Zoom, and I was talking about how the U.S. state flags are kind of underwhelming, right? Like Ohio has a pretty cool flag because it's tapered.
Mm.
I think Ohio's pretty dope. I still think California has the best state flag because it's got a bear on it.
Yeah.
And so she just on her end pulled up, she just Googled US state flags, found a JPEG that had like all 50 of them on there and was looking at them. So I couldn't see what she was looking at. I had done the same and was just kind of referencing them. And I said, I think Mississippi has a pretty dope flag because I'm looking at it and I see it's magnolia.
Okay.
Magnolia
Sure.
blossom is the Mississippi state flag, not realizing that a few years before it had changed. So Janina was looking at an old one that had the stars and bars on it. So when I said Mississippi's got a pretty great flag, she just stared blankly at me and said,
She's like,
"What is your
oh,
problem? Why would you say that?"
bit nationalistic, are we? Now, okay, I want to add a South Carolina state flag to that
Oh,
with
the
with
moon
the
and the
palmetto
palmetto.
and the moon.
Mm,
Come on, that's
that's a
classic.
good one. That's a really, really good one.
It's very dreamy. Like it's almost like surrealistic. Like you're in a desert wasteland and you come across a single palmetto and the moon
Yeah.
and a woman sleeping under the moon. Like it's very, Rousseau. Is that the painter? I can't remember. But like very like surrealistic almost.
Yeah. You're from Tennessee, which has a pretty decent state flag with the circle and the three stars.
Nice and simple
Yeah.
because being from Tennessee, that there's three regions. There's sort of the Memphis area, the Nashville area, and the Knoxville area. So nice and easy.
I hadn't even thought that that's what the three stars were representing, was those three very distinct regions of
Yeah,
the long state, as
the
you're
long
known.
state. Yeah.
Yes. Um yeah, this movie we came to, I don't even remember what we rolled now, but
Apocalyptic and witchy, I
I
think.
think you're right. I think you're right. It does sort of meet those things. It's not quite apocalyptic, other than the landscape
Yeah.
is very apocalyptic. And when we think about, this movie had me going down a little bit of a rabbit hole, which I'm not going to get a lot into here because the internet rabbit hole in a couple of days is not going to really inform me or you, the listener, with as much as you need to know about the history of Namibia
Right.
and South Africa
Yeah.
happening here. But the it is showing a really drought ravaged countryside, and I think it's really interesting that this movie deals in race in a very non-American way, although I don't think it totally takes it head on, but it absolutely is there with the whites only and blacks only bar.
Oh, sure.
Featured in
the police investigation. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
At that point, I was like, wow, okay, I think we're really commenting on something without commenting on it in the main plot of this film.
Yeah. And then at the heart of it is the witchiness of it, which I thought was, I mean, if we have, African listeners or black listeners or witchy listeners, right? I mean, this movie, I'd be curious your feedback on this, but this movie feels like it handles like just the general sense of witchery pretty well. Like, I think it treats it with a level of respect. It's got a little bit of like exoticism to it, but as a whole, like I think it tackles witchery pretty well, witchcraftery. Okay. First off, it's a bummer to me that 1992 looks so old because this movie opens in 4:3 ratio.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh no, this looks like an old film, and I was almost graduated from high school when this came out.
Oh, well, keep in mind, it's also like a low budget or a modest budget film.
Yeah.
And Richard Stanley did one other film called Hardware, then this, and then this is kind of what catapulted him to the debacle that was The Island of Dr. Moreau or The Island of Lost Souls.
Yeah.
Which there's a great documentary. That was my follow-up feature to this last night. If you have a chance, watch Lost Souls, the documentary about Richard Stanley's Island of Lost Souls, and it's unbelievably good.
Yeah. I would like to see that. I have not watched that yet. So we get the voiceover of a man that we will learn to be is named Joe.
Yeah.
This is our Sangoma. He is a sort of the a healer, a witch. Kind of like a part of a local tribe or community that is a seer and a healer and a cleric of sorts. But he gives us the voiceover on this like orange washed desert landscape. If you are watching this, you can see my background here. And he says, back in the first times, in the time of the red light, there was a man who grew wings and flew like a bird, like the desert wind, and he became a hunter, like a hawk, living where magic still exists. He still has passions like a man. We in Namibia call these violent winds dust devils. So he sort of sets upon the idea of the spirit that takes the form of the literal dust devil, the literal like sandstorm tornado kind of effect, but also that it inhabits bodies of men and gets trapped in there. I think is the lore of the dust devil. It has to serve a master until it can fill the bowl with enough souls.
The bowl. Come on, what's more witchy than fill a bowl full of souls? And when you've done that, you can shuffle off this mortal coil and go hang out on the other side of the mirror. Like, even that sentence just made me like +2 witchy.
Yeah.
On my next D&D roll.
Also, just from a literary point of view too, I like the idea of filling the bowl. It reminds me of the original Cinderella, right? That you have to pick the lentils, you have to pick the beans out of the fireplace, and it's her like with a bowl plucking little beans into a bowl, into a pot. And there's something very like visual to that, to like that until this bowl is filled, you cannot go to the ball with us.
Yes.
Into the woods. Excuse me.
But it's even more that, like, what is a soul weigh? What, like, how much space does a soul take up? How much space is on the inside of a bowl that looks completely normal? But like, I think the reason why this movie rates so high on the witchy scale is that it taps into like fundamental magic, like like old magic, if is probably the best word I can use to describe it,
Mm-hmm.
in that it crosses borders. It's magic that has been around since humans have been around. We have looked at the objects in nature. We've looked at the objects that we create, bowls, dust devils, rocks, birds, and create stories about them, and
Yeah.
creates like backstories and the mythos that goes around with everyday objects. And when they say in this movie, keep your eyes wide open, I think that's what the comment on magic is.
Mm-hmm.
Next time you see a hawk, you don't just see a hawk. You might be seeing something more than a hawk.
Yeah. And also, I think one of the things I think about witchiness, about magic that works in the real world is also in something you and I have talked about before in person and also on this show, which is divination, but also like imagery, right? Like almost like Jungian style imagery. There's a moment where the investigator asks Joe, what do you know about this killer, and why is he cutting off people and stealing people's fingers? And Joe says, fingers are powerful, man.
Yeah.
Like they are a sign of power.
Yeah. All those knuckles.
All those knuckles. You can't have a war without you can't have a fight without knuckles.
Yeah.
You can't have a war without hands. And I thought, what great use of that type of Jungian imagery, that those standard like images. And I think witchcraft recognizes those things. It teaches you, as you just said, to look at a bird, to look at a windstorm, to look at a mountain, and to see all of the things it could represent. Okay, so we meet the man in black. We meet the gunslinger. This is
he's such the gunslinger, right?
Yeah. Absolutely not dressed for hot summer desert weather in Southwest Africa with his long black trench coat and leather hat and high boots and jeans, but he's doing it. He's got a look going, you know.
He's been working that look since the mid to late 1500s or something.
Yep. So we've got our man in black. We also have a pretty fun visual device, which he has a pocket watch that when he opens up the pocket watch, the hands just spin and spin and spin.
Yeah.
So time is a construct in terms of this demon. Like time is meaningless to him. Yeah. And it means everything. So there's this movement that we'll see later in the end of this film, but the movement here is he is in the middle of this highway in this desert road, and he lays down and puts his ear to the road to listen for oncoming travelers. And we get a car. And as Joe tells us in the narration, the faithless and grieving are hypnotized by his glare. And he's kind of got a hand gesture that he does.
Yeah.
That creates hypnotism. And this beautiful woman pulls over and takes him home.
Yeah. Not a word spoken.
Takes him home, meaning to her place to do a sex.
Yeah. But not before he takes a photo of her, which is one of his things. And I really like this device of, again, back to this witchiness of if you can take someone's image, you own a piece of their soul. And then we, learn through his process is to take a picture of his victim. And then later, after they're dead, he writes down the time of their death as like a memento mori, as a, but he keeps them.
Yeah.
And, the contrast that to what Joe does, the sort of local shaman, he burns the picture. Like he finds a picture of one of the victims and he burns it to let that spirit go.
I didn't actually piece that together, but you're right. That is what Joe does later, is he burns a picture. Because the soul becomes trapped in the picture. This dust devil that inhabits our Texan, our man in as he gets called later, that inhabits this rando man in black. The excuse he makes, or maybe partially true, is that he's there to reap souls that are ready to die. So in some ways there is a grim reaper to it, that it's like, I'm only here for you when it is your time. And unlike the grim reaper, who that time is decided by all kinds of things, but for the sake of the dust devil, it's decided by you. You know when you're ready to go. And so the sense we get from the woman who picks him up, who then is killed in bed, her neck snapped, and then her body dismembered and her house set on fire. What we gather is that, we learn later from, Ben, our detective, that she didn't have a husband. She didn't have a family. No one was at her funeral. No one loved her. And this was a woman who theoretically was ready to die.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and as narrator Joe tells us, their death is a gift to the Dust Devil, basically. And also, or I'm sorry, their death is a gift to themselves, right? Like, so the Dust Devil taking their lives and their souls is somehow a gift to the person.
Sort of the angel of mercy theory.
Yeah. Okay, so let's meet Wendy. What do you say?
Oh, Wendy. So, the Julia Roberts kind of wacky sister.
Yeah. So Wendy is married to, I'm gonna forget his name.
Mark.
I think it's Mark. Yeah. So Wendy and Mark at home, they live in Pretoria, in capital of South Africa, one of the capitals of South Africa. And so she gets a call late at night. It's kind of this breathy call, being, whatever. And then her husband wakes up and realizes she had been gone all night and is like, "What time did you get in? You're sleeping with somebody." Manages to lay hands on this woman, and she fucks right on off.
She's like, I'm out. This time it's for real. Yep. I'm not going to forgive you. She takes like 2 dresses and gets in that car and drives away.
And then he's like, "No, wait, Wendy, I'm sorry." This guy's a true dick. Okay, so that's Wendy. So she is just going to drive to Bethany, Namibia, just over the South African border, which is set up as absolutely the most desolate town on the planet Earth, besides whatever the fuck town we were in Wake and Fright.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. This movie, I had to do a double take. I forgot that this movie took place in Africa and not Australia. Because it looks so much like the red center of Australia.
Oh, interesting.
And when they kept saying, she's like, where are you going? I'm going to drive all the way to the ocean. In my mind, she was going to Perth.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, right. Different continent. Okay, yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Deserts do look a bit the same no matter where you go.
It is weird that she has to drive through Namibia to get to the ocean because, famously, South Africa
surrounded by ocean, isn't it?
It's pretty surrounded by the ocean. You could go in every direction but north, which is where Namibia is, to get to the ocean.
Well, I wonder what is Wendy's intention when she leaves this guy? Like, where does she think she's going?
That's a great question. My assumption was just, I got to get out of here and I'll figure it out later.
Yeah. And she picks the direction that takes her to absolute nothingness.
Boy, she sure does. She sure does. Let's talk about our police investigator. We've got Mukarab. This is Ben Mukarab, the sergeant. And we've got Captain Bateman, who is not a significant character in this. I only bring him up because there is an interesting, we've got this interesting dichotomy of, black and white investigations. This movie follows mostly Ben, the black detective. This white guy, Captain Bateman, was one, when I looked him up online, because he's got this South African accent. When I looked him up online, he was also Porkins in the original Star Wars, one of the X-Wing fighter people.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He's just one of the ones that I think shouts like, "I've been hit." That's basically, I was like, awesome. Good job, dude. But the other thing is, dude's from Dallas, Texas.
Weird.
Dude is from my hometown.
I wonder how he ended up in this film.
I don't know. But there's this assumption here from Bayman, the white detective, because this white woman's house in, I'm assuming it happens in Namibia here. Yeah. And this white woman's house in Namibia, she was found, torn apart. Her body, she was killed and her body dismembered, and the house burned down. And Bayman says, this looks like terrorism.
Yeah.
And Mukarab Ben, Sergeant Ben says, yeah, that's not it. We've had a long ceasefire with the commando units.
Yeah.
That's what set me on edge of, wait, what is happening in Namibia at this time?
Yeah.
And we've had several years, because 1990 is when Namibia gains official recognition as a sovereign nation separate from South Africa. But the previous 40, 50 years, they were like aided by the UN in maintaining some level of sovereignty, but not totally sovereign, because the UN is partially running it, and South Africa still doesn't want to let them go until 1990. Yeah. So it makes sense that there is some sense of terrorism happening along the border of these two countries.
Sure. And I mean, borders can change, but people's minds and hearts take way longer to make that adjustment. And I think a lot of that is what the undercurrent of this movie is about.
Yeah.
It's, yes, officially you get this flag, we get that flag, here's the border, but go into a bar and things are same.
Yeah. And just the fact that, you've got these Dutch named white people. Like I said at the intro, the capital of Namibia is Windhoek, Hoek. Like there's some real Dutch shit. There's some leftover colonialism happening all over the place in Africa, and particularly in this country too. Okay, so.
Well, can we talk about this murder scene?
Oh, yes.
Because this is like, when I saw this movie, this was like the stuff that I remembered the most about this film. The plot, yeah, it's pretty basic, demon finds girlfriend is, the only way describe the plot. But this murder scene is so intricate. And it's really indicative of Richard Stanley as a director, which he fills the screen with loaded images, both good and bad. Like you'll notice, I think when it's, panning through the aftermath of the murder, and we know that the Dust Devil is compelled to use the body in creative ways.
Mm-hmm.
And he's almost in this like painter psychotrance state of creating art on the walls. And you get this impression that whatever the voices whispering in the background going are telling him to make these images.
Mm-hmm.
And you realize this is his work. The killing is almost incidental. This is really why he's not out to like torture people. He's not out to, this is what he needs. He needs materials the way a potter needs clay or a painter needs paint. And if he has to kill a person or two to get it, that's just the cost of admission.
Yeah.
But Richard Stanley fills the screen with so much visual information that it's almost hard to take all of it in. But if you start to understand like the visual language he's using of witchiness or religiosity in white candles, lilies on the good end, and then, feces on the wall, making a dust devil print in the other. It's really fascinating, like how long these images stay with you. Because listen, he fills the screen with stuff.
Yeah. Well, one of the images we get at the murder scene is the skull drawn in blood on the wall, as well as like the spiral shape that we see kind of recurring throughout. We'll see Joe standing in a spiral of rocks later. Another image that follows just after this, there's a moment where the Dust Devil has like hopped a train car with some hobos and then hops off in Bethany, Namibia. And, this is under the narrator's voice, and it's just a minor little scene, but it's so full of just chock full of visuals, which is when he stops by a group of young boys. They're all white and they're at shooting practice. It's like white Namibia and ROTC, and they're at shooting practice, and he makes eye contact
with a priest, no less.
Yes. And Dust Devil makes eye contact with one of the boys, and the boy kind of looks at him and then looks back at his target and fires the rifle, and it hits this target like right in the forehead, right in the third eye. And these targets are all like targets typically at a gun range are black outlines.
Yeah.
But this has features on it that makes it look like a black man.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot happening in this scene that's going on.
Well, the fact that it's a priest
yes.
that is like the way the priest like hands this boy these bullets. It's very like, you are a servant of God. Every person you kill is in God's name. And we know, because we're listening to the voiceover, that this young boy is not a young boy. He's actually another spirit, like a dust devil. And the voiceover tells us the dust devil is hawk-like. He's a hunter, but he hunts alone. There's other spirits in the world that are different animal-like, but they also hunt alone. So they're like, you're a fancy, you're not just a normal person, but no more than a glance. And then you travel your road, I travel mine. Yeah. And, like having been a fan of Neil Gaiman and sort of this Joseph Campbell sort of mythos, you kind of wonder, what was that guy? Is he the spirit of war? Is he the spirit of destruction? Like what, that he's a young boy, that he is an amazing shot, even though he is working or under the guidance of a religious instructor, he's still killing people. So it's that twisted version of good, evil, same.
Yeah. So Wendy stops at this bar in Bethany. She is at a payphone. There's just a lot of people making a lot of noise, including the Dust Devil right next to her, who is playing a pinball machine. And so she makes a call to Mark, but he doesn't answer because Mark is drunk and passed out. And so she tries to make a collect call.
Oh my God. Do you remember those? Calls? I know. I think that was like, remember when you had to ask the operator to call the person and accept the charges in order to put, and then sometimes it would get your answering machine. And then now you've got an operator. Oh my God.
Yes. Well, that's exactly what happens, which is Mark later will just hear the part on the answering machine message of the operator not being able to connect to him. But Mark will piece together based off of the sounds in the bar, kind of where the exchange that the number is coming from, where that bar is, that it's in Bethany.
Yeah.
He like Google Maps it basically. He's got his maps go out to figure out where this bar is.
That's it.
Again, this Dust Devil is playing, Man in Black is playing pinball next to her. When she hangs up the phone, she turns to look at him, but he's gone, and there's just a black cat standing on the pinball machine.
Ooh. And so and this is the theme where he does not approach his victims until they are ready, until they've come to fruition and are ready to be plucked.
Yes.
And he knows that this woman is something special, but she's not there yet. He has so he kind of fucks off and finds some poor punk rocker in a conversion van. And he's like, no, I'm going to let her simmer for a bit. I'm going to take this guy, because next thing we know, a photo is being taken and the plot moves on.
Yeah. Let's talk about Wendy and her relationship to Mark for a second here, because Wendy goes to some cafe. She's just smoking and drinking coffee and writing a letter. She's writing her Dear John letter. And I know I still need you, but I can never be the wife you want. And I'm like, no. Dear Mark, fuck yourself. Those are my only notes, Wendy. That's your whole letter.
It's also like, I still need you. What do you need this guy for?
Nothing. Money? I don't know. I don't understand.
Yeah. Well, that's why like Wendy's motivation to go into the desert is very interesting to me, because she does seem adrift. As in like this guy, Mark, it's, average Joe that she has been married to, ties her to society. She is Mrs. Mark Robinson. She knows who she is. She knows what she has to do, but there's something inside of her that says you are more than this.
Yeah.
And when she breaks away, the next thing we know, she's trying to kill herself. As in like she's untethered from society in the most apocalyptic nowhere on Earth, which is kind of relatable to some people, that if you don't have these things tying you to polite society, then you just sort of drift off into the wind. And what purpose do you serve? What do you live for?
Yeah.
So
well, that makes
maybe
sense.
she does need him.
Yeah.
But she doesn't need him in the ways that he needs her. And she doesn't like the ways that she needs him. But she doesn't know what else there is for her outside of nice, polite society.
Yeah. I think that's a great way of putting it. Yeah, we see her later at her motel, like in the bathtub, contemplating razor to the wrist.
Yeah.
And we actually see the Dust Devil with his like little tiny sickle of a knife.
Yeah.
Like coming
his
into
his talon claw.
Yeah, it's a very hawk talon. We see him, coming in the doorway, being like, well, here it is. But he catches her just as she is deciding, I do not want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And
he's not really there. He's like projecting his image to that place.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also love the fact that in a movie that is dry as dust, the use of water imagery in this is really well done. So, we're now like 20, 30 minutes in and everything is orange, orange, orange.
Yeah.
But Wendy is like bathed in water. She's like under, like, it's really great. The sort of, water as emotion metaphor. Like she's literally drowning in her own emotions in this bathtub.
Yeah. Oh, well, actually, let me go back to your thing about different spirits, different animals as different types of spirits or people. And we've got the hawk as the Dust Devil. It's also the hawk. But we see images when we see images of narrator Joe, they're overlaid with the owl, which I find very interesting as well too. So Wendy is driving late at night, almost about to fall asleep on the road. She's just driving to the ocean, basically. And she suddenly sees Dust Devil in the middle of the street holding his giant hook talon knife. Mm-hmm. And she swerves and crashes her fucking Beetle in a ditch.
Yeah.
And is kind of like, motherfucker, like, God damn it. And I'm like, lady, I'm not as worried about your car as I am about the man who was in the road with a giant knife.
Yeah. She has a lot of weird moments in her life around this time, and she gets over them very easily. Like she encounters some shit that I'm like, lady, you recovered from that really well. I gotta say, when you thought you were awake, but you were dreaming, but you were also awake, and then the guy doing magic in the car is not in the car anymore. She seemed totally okay with that.
Yes.
She's like, I'm just tired.
So Ben is our detective. Ben Mukharab is going to go see Joe because he gets told by the morgue technician.
Yeah.
When they were, looking at this dismembered woman's body from the beginning, that like, one, she was mutilated, possibly cannibalized, fingers cut off, head cut off, everything. We found a pocket watch
inside of her,
into her. There also the drawings on the wall is not just blood, but it's also human fat and seagull guano used to make the drawings. So there's a lot happening, and the tech is like, a lot of this is associated with witchcraft. You must have a local Sangoma, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, what?
He's like,
she's like, yeah, you should just go talk to like a shaman. He's like, God damn it.
Like, what a fascinating. Oh, this to me is one of the most interesting relationships of this film, of the hardened cop who, we're going to get Ben's story a little bit later as to why he is the hardened cop, but the non-believer who is thrust into a world of belief. It's like, this is a really amazing, like, Name of the Rose is another one where you're trying to solve something and that the clues you've been given aren't worldly, I guess, but they have meanings to the killer that are magic, that are otherworldly.
Mm-hmm.
And the cop may not believe in this bullshit, but in order to solve the case, he has to put his beliefs aside and follow the rabbit hole. And sure enough, it goes back to his friend Joe, who the two of them clearly have a lot of backstory.
Mm-hmm. This is the scene where Joe says there was a whole lot of power in fingers.
Yeah.
But the other thing that he says is he tells Joe, Ben tells Joe, like, I don't honestly, I don't, I just want you to tell me what you know. I don't believe in any of this stuff. But listen, if it helps, it helps. So just tell me what you know. And Joe says,
give me the wiki of what fingers mean. I don't need to believe in the finger magic. I just need to have a list of all the things you can do with fingers, please.
And Joe says to know it, you have to believe in it.
Yeah.
Which I think is a really good thing. Like you're not really ever going to take it seriously if you don't take the time to believe that it can be real. Okay. So here's the kind of like the central mystery, if you just look at this as a police procedural. The central mystery is there is a dead body in a camper van in the middle of the desert. Wendy in her travels just kind of accidents upon it. Because she wrecked her car. She sees a camper van, like goes to knock on the door to be like, hey, can you help me get my car out of the ditch? There is a black man. Wendy is white. There is a black man out in the desert who's got a shovel, who also is investigating the camper van. Neither of them know yet there is a dead fucking mutilated body inside of it.
But the black guy helps her. Essentially, just all she needed was like to push her car. Yeah. Like she didn't wreck her car. She just like upended it a little bit.
Yeah.
And listen, the way she treats this guy, she's like, hey, could you help me? And he helps her push her car and she fucking drives off, leaving this guy in the middle of nowhere.
Kicking like dirt up onto him with her back tires. I was like, rude. God damn.
Rude.
Karen. No way. So this is going to be a problem because later the police are white policemen that are under the observation of our black sergeant, Mukharab, but it is the white policemen who show up, find the dead body and the black man out in the desert.
Yeah.
They're going to take this dude in, beat the living shit out of him to get more information because he's a material witness to a potential
This scene
murder.
is so jarring because we're plunked down in the middle of like an interrogation scene that is as violent as any war film you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And they're, like yelling at him and, like, where were you? Why did you do it? All that sort of like assuming that he killed that person. And Ben bursts in and is like, what the fuck are you all doing? Like, this is not like chain of command. Oh my God. Like, why didn't you talk to me before? And they're like, well, he's clearly knows something. And Ben is like, let this guy go. You all are, your head is so far up your ass and violence is the only tool you have. This is literally why we have rules. So shit like this doesn't happen.
There's a sense too of that I felt in this scene, whereas I know that Ben is their sergeant. These are patrolmen, essentially. And Ben is the sergeant of whatever police force there happens to exist. Although the more we learn about it, the more we learn it's a little Wild Westy out here.
Like it's beyond the Wild West.
So there's a sense I get from these white men, these white, beat cops, that they're like, okay, sure, boss, let him go.
Yeah.
And I think it's significant that later he sees the two of them in his dream, in his really shitty dream that he has.
Oh, yeah.
Because there is a feeling, not that they're a threat to Ben, but more that like you really cannot control what these men do. You can tell them to stop it when you see it, but it's going to continue how they do it because these are the people we have.
I mean, it's so interesting, the location of this film. This film theoretically could take place almost anywhere.
Yeah.
But it's, but you were talking about the political landscape, the environmental landscape, the idea that, oh my God, when we get to the end of this movie where there's literally a town that has like partially been swallowed by the desert. And all of that, I think that's why this movie falls under sort of apocalyptic to me, is that it's looking at a time and a place in the world history where, rules don't matter anymore. The people in charge have forgotten us. They're, nobody, it's a no man's land.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a place where, listen, if you're living in between worlds, it's a real easy place to get lost.
Wendy is driving again, and she runs across the Dust Devil once again, and I love this scene because he's standing on the side of the road in a certain way, like we saw at the beginning of the movie, where he looks exactly like a hitchhiker, except he's dressed like an Old West gunman.
Yeah.
That's one. And two, instead of like just holding his thumb out or, a single hand up, he's got his arm fully outstretched with all 5 fingers wide open. Yeah. This is his like hypnotoad thing that he does.
Yeah. Like the light of the 5 fingers fall across your face, I think is what I was like, okay, that's some deep magic.
So he does the little hypno hand wave and she pulls over, picks him up. And this is some great noir dialogue. She says, where are you headed for? Nowhere. I just came from there. Climb aboard. Oh my God. Okay, Raymond Chandler, let's do this.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's very film noir. It's, what makes film noir is that there are no angels in film noir. There's no good people. There's only varying degrees of gray and black.
Yeah.
And that's kind of appropriate for this film.
This is really the first time in the film that we hear the Dust Devil speak.
Yeah.
And he is clearly an American. Which I'm still not quite sure what to make of that, of the choice to make this character American. Because what we know about the Dust Devil is it can move from body to body.
Sure.
I start thinking about the movie Hostel we watched a couple weeks ago, wherein we have Americans out of place.
Sure.
And is this another case where we had a young, handsome American in the wrong place? Or what was, I'm just curious as to the choice to make this character an American as opposed to a white South African or a black or white Namibian. It was interesting to me.
Well, I think I like the fact that he's an other. He's unplaceable to these people. She's like, I think I hear in America, I'm going to call you Texas because you seem like you're from Texas. But she's really excited about that. She's like, oh my God, I get to meet someone from America. Holy shit. This is there's a bit of, I don't know, like almost like admiration or it's for her, it's exotic. It's, oh my God, I can't believe my luck. I got a hitchhiker that's American. Maybe this guy is going to take me back to America and pull me out of this bullshit apocalyptic apartheid hell that I live in.
Yeah. Maybe he'll take me to a Cowboys game someday.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Yeah.
A spoiler, he's not from Texas. He's actually a demon.
I think that's a great point about like the Western exoticism, right? Because this Richard Stanley said that, one of his inspirations for this film is the spaghetti westerns, right? Like the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Oh my God. Even right down to the that sound in Red Right Hand, that ting, like the tolling of the bell happens throughout this movie.
Yep.
It's also peppered with old country music. Like I'm a Rambling Man. When she's sitting down writing her Dear John letter, it's like some woman singing the ultimate country, gonna leave my man kind of like, it's very old school country, which is again a time when America was not lawless, but the laws were what you made of them.
Yeah, it celebrates that birth of new country sort of feel to it too. He does take her picture. He gets her Polaroid.
Yeah.
So we're getting her bank account ready, her soul bank account ready. I love this scene. This is my single favorite scene in this movie. It's such a good, creepy, spine-tingling scare because they're driving on the highway again, all this repetitive open desert road, and she sees up ahead another hitchhiker dressed just like this one with the same hypnotoad arm gesture. And she's staring, there's another guy. Maybe we should
He's
get
like,
him. And
nope,
he's, keep driving,
keep driving.
Don't even look. Keep your eyes down. Keep driving. Don't even
Yeah.
look. So she does. They drive past him. And then suddenly she looks up and the man in her car is gone.
He's gone.
And both of them are gone. There's no two identical Dust Devils. I love that creepiness. I've said on the show before, doppelgangers, pairs. Oh, yeah. That shit's scary as fuck. I love it.
Well, and what's interesting is like the conversation right before that, because she's trying to, I can't remember if they've slept together or not, but she's trying to get more information from him. And let's just say Dust Devil is an expert at dodging and deflecting any kind of factual anything about his life. But I think she essentially asked him, like, where are you from? What do you do? And he kind of hints that he's magic. And she goes, yeah, whatever. Magic schmagic. And the next thing he does is he pulls a magic trick that defies belief.
Yeah.
So you get the feeling that Wendy is getting a different experience than the first couple of victims or the way the Dust Devil normally kills people. We don't know. We know that their souls are entwined in some way, but we're not quite sure how yet. But we know that Wendy is different than his usual victims.
And we all just also don't know what happens when the Dust Devils interact with each other.
Oh, yeah.
Was he more, he seems, was he scared for himself if they had picked up another Dust Devil?
You know what I mean? I assumed that wasn't, I interpreted that as he projects his image onto the road in order to like show her the breadth of his power.
Oh, interesting.
To prove to her who he is. Like, because I can say I'm a devil, I'm super magic, and she'd be like, okay, dude, whatever. But instead of saying it, he just does a Dust Devil chicanery trick.
Oh, interesting.
And she walks away knowing that something else is happening, even if she can't explain it. She knows at a fundamental level that there is something going on that is deeper than just a hitchhiker on the road. But you thought that he was another, that was another.
I thought it was another one on the road. But yeah, those are both interesting ideas in there. Let's talk about Ben's dream. Sergeant Ben Mukarab's dream. Love this too. So it's clearly a dream. We see the white cops in front of this door covered in like runes,
oh yeah. Well, and everything is lit in green.
Yes.
And we know this movie loves color saturation. So if it's lit in green, it must be a dream, right?
And these two cops with these big, just disgusting smirks on their face, like open the door for Ben. And inside this crypt sort of room, large crypt, is Sarcha. This is the woman who died in the beginning, the first woman. And she is dressed in all black with a black veil. And she is crying tears of blood.
Yeah.
And she leans in and kisses Ben on the mouth. And Ben suddenly wakes in fright. And then he sees Joe sitting on the floor at the foot of his bed saying, oh my God, I had this terrible dream. And Joe says, that was no dream. Suddenly a zombie comes up from behind Ben and
pulls
rips
out his heart.
Then he wakes up again and Joe and his dog are still sitting there. And Joe goes, you in a lot of trouble, pal.
Yeah. And I love this. Like, it's always interesting to me, the idea of magic users in a story that encounter other magic users. That he's like, his friend Joe was like, oh, you're trying to solve a serial. Okay, well, I guess I'll help you. But then Joe starts to piece together the signs on the magic end of things, not on the clue end of things. And he's like, oh, fuck, my friend might be in too deep here.
Yeah.
Like maybe he doesn't even know how deep he doesn't know how deep he's in.
Yeah.
But, Joe, normally Joe's like, okay, whatever, you got to solve a murder. Oh shit, this is something else entirely.
I also like that after that, zombie rips his heart out. He wakes up. He says to Joe, am I awake? Am I really awake now? And Joe says, no, now you're dreaming. Meaning the very first dream he had was the reality. Like just he's fucking with Ben's sense of time here.
Well, it's the
or reality.
Are you a man who dreams he's a butterfly that dreams he was a man, and are you a man or are you a butterfly dreaming that you're a man? It's that delightful business that humans have been wrestling with since we were beginning to be human.
You ever hear the story about the frog who dreamed of being a king and then became one? Sorry, I'm being all Neil Diamond over here. So we've got, okay.
So wait, no, now we learn.
Yeah.
Okay, so now Joe gives him a very important piece of information, which is like, okay, you're beginning to believe there's something else at play here. You can't just shoot this guy because he's not a guy, he's a demon.
Yes.
So I'm going to give you two things. And this is like, oh God, loaded. Come on. I love this shit. And he gives him a key. And he's like, the Dust Devil lives on the road. The Dust Devil is compelled to always be moving. The road is his home. But if you can root him to a place by tricking him, which always, like classic, like monomyth mythology, hugely powerful things can still be tricked. And if you can trick him into stepping over this key, it roots him to the spot. Now, listeners, when I say key, I mean a giant fucking dagger.
Yeah, it's a wood stick he calls a Kiri.
Oh, a Kiri. Oh, I thought you said
Kiri.
a key.
No, it's a
I'm
Kiri. Sorry. Yeah, it's a Kiri stick. But it does it does have the vibe of a key. It's got like this big knotted almost handle at one end, and then it kind of like tapers into a point. Yeah.
Because he's like, yeah, this key. And I was like, that is a large wooden shiv that you have there. Yeah, and then the other thing he gives him is a root, like this very gnarly looking root. And he's like, listen, trick him, try to, stab him with the pointy end. But there's two things. You got to do that to root him to the spot. But then you have to burn this root, and that will blow him away. He can't stay there because his MO is, if you kill the Dust Devil, he just takes over the body of the killer and continues on his way. But if you burn the root, you complete you like break the cycle. Happy ending.
Yeah, because if you kill him, you can kill that body, but that spirit's got to enter something else, and that root will.
And the root will send him out back into the ether or something.
Yeah. And it will keep him from entering you, because what will happen? Yeah. So.
But what makes the scene so good from a film point of view is that you've got, the believer and you've got the non-believer, and the believer is like pleading with him.
Yeah.
For his sake. He's like, I know you don't believe this. Just complete please, for your sake, complete the ritual. And the stakes feel so high.
Absolutely.
It's high drama. Like this is great drama. And the actors, oh my God, these two actors, like, this film could not exist without like the depth that these two actors bring to this, because they don't have to say a lot. They bring that emotion and they bring that depth to their performance. And I feel like if this movie were made by Hollywood, by an American, it would be very ham-fisted with its use of magic, because Americans love, defining things. And in this movie, it's much more subjective and left to the viewer to fill in the gaps as to what their relationship is, as to why they're doing the things they do and what they're doing.
Well, and the lore feels more like lore, rather than, it feels more fairy tale than superhero.
Yeah.
Or super villain.
So he's not Hawkman. If this were the Marvel Cinematic Universe, he would have, it would be very like, oh, he is this, that is what he is.
Yeah.
Versus like, there once was a man who dreamed he was a hawk, who dreamed he was a man,
Okay, so we'll get to this in just a second, but update on Wendy and the Dust Devil. They reunite.
Yeah.
They get back together.
And again, she's like, oh, I had the craziest night. I must be so tired. And he's like,
Yep. He's like in her car when she gets up in the morning. Yeah. He's like, listen, totally, here's what happened the other day. You fell asleep. I just got out. You're just a little confused, just lady. She's like, sure, hop on in, cutie.
I know, right? She gets over that real quick.
Wendy. I need you to read just anything about personal safety.
Yeah, yeah.
Just find a feminist blog just to read about this type of shit. But she starts driving him towards the sea. They find their way to this
Like
bar.
a canyon.
They go to the canyon. He starts rambling on about the story about this something about the
Like
great
the snake father
that caused the canyon. She's like, "Shut up and kiss me," and they kiss.
Yeah.
And then he takes her to some taqueria joint someplace, sitting outside under the Christmas lights playing harmonica for her.
I know, right? And by playing harmonica for her, he makes shit explode, which I love this. Again, unexplained.
Yeah.
Like, all we know is that he's playing harmonica. She seems, it's a long night. He finishes his song, and over his shoulder, like literally over his shoulder, something blows up. And she's like, "What the fuck?" And he's like, "It's probably nothing."
Yeah, soldiers like to do that from time. Which I love that explosion scene, because it does remind you that this is there are soldiers here. Yeah. So even if you have a ceasefire with the commandos, as Ben says early in the movie, you still have tension. You still have soldiers. And we understand that in America too. The war on terror increased so much police, military level police activity across our country. Can you imagine what it's like when you're dealing with two neighboring nations that have had a dispute over sovereignty for years? And
within those two nations, there's even smaller nations made up of apartheid white and apartheid,
Yep.
There's a tiny connector scene in this film in which a bunch of cattle is being loaded onto a train, and right next, and so you see the cattle, and you hear the cattle, and through the smoke you also see soldiers being loaded onto a train, but you continue to hear the sound of cattle.
Yes.
And you realize that the humans, like, we're in a place where human life has just as much weight and merit as an animal's life. And I think that is sort of the undercurrent of this film of lawless.
Yeah.
Like, there is no good here. There's only shades of dark.
Yeah. Well, Mark, Wendy's husband, let's remember him for a second.
He does, point to Mark, he does some pretty hard sleuthing himself.
He does, although I'm going to knock a point down for him too, though, because the sleuthing can't be that hard when you know that she called from a bar in Bethany, which there's probably
like the only bar.
A bar.
Yeah.
So he gets on his way to Bethany, to Namibia, to go find his wife. This man has no clue what's going on. Like, this is, Bethany doesn't either, but Bethany is sort of like,
Wendy. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Wendy in Bethany. Wendy is in like chaos mode.
Yeah.
She is just like, she is the plastic bag caught in the breeze in American
She's
Beauty,
on Rumspringa.
right? Yeah.
She's on Rumspringa. She's on Demon Rumspringa.
Whereas Mark is in like white guy mode.
Yeah.
Mark is in like,
he sees it. He sees her as a problem that needs to be fixed.
Well,
if I can just talk to her, I could get her to come back.
He also is a white man living in the capital city of a large nation that has been only benefiting him through apartheid for this many decades. And so his assumption is he can just go to some small town, boss people around, or just say, "Here, I need help," and people will help him, as if that's how this is going to work.
As if like the black men that own and hang out in this bar are just gonna be like, "Oh, well, sure, white man. Yeah, what? How can I help you?"
Yes,
I was put on Earth to help you find your wife, so please let me give you my full attention.
Well, he literally does go to the right bar, but the wrong bar, because as we learn, there is still apartheid happening, and it is happening in Bethany, Namibia as well. Because he shows up at the bar, he knows this is the bar, but it is all black men, and they are staring at him like, "Why are you in our bar?"
Yeah.
And he doesn't seem to even know that there is apartheid happening.
Yeah.
Which is the most damning thing about this white dude, is that he's not even aware of apartheid.
Or if I think he's aware, but it's so minimized. Like, he could only see his own bullshit. Like
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, but I'm her husband. That should like,
That's it.
haven't you ever been in love, man? You know, love conquers all, love is universal. And they're like, please go on the other, like, you're going to get us killed.
Yeah.
If you were to, like, if a cop were to walk in here, or the wrong white guy, like, we're the ones that are going to get fucked. So they stonewall him. They're like, never seen it, never heard it. Like, please just, like, we can't help you. We don't want to help you. Go to the white side. And he just doesn't. He's trying to play the love trumps all card, and it's not working.
He doesn't get it, and eventually they get tired of shit, beat the crap out of him, take his passport, take his handgun, that he brought with him.
And don't they also like they kind of essentially say, like, if you believe in apartheid, you're like one of the assholes that is kept. Like, they're doing what the white cops were doing to the black man, which is taking out the societal aggression on an individual.
Well, the other thing I think that they realize, because he's showing around this picture of Wendy.
Yeah.
And the thing is, those cops are on the lookout for Wendy, because what they know is there was a dismembered body in a camper van in a desert.
Sure.
And this one white lady was the one who showed up, and her name was whatever. And she looked like this. And this man shows up with a photo of her and says, I'm her husband. And so they basically beat the shit out of him and tell the police, hey, remember that guy you were looking for? Caught him for you.
Yeah.
And those two white cops show up and haul his ass off to jail.
Yeah.
Because now he is some form of connection to this crime,
right,
of some sort, a person of interest, as it were. Okay. Wendy and Dust Devil are doing a fucking at this motel, and I love this scene because this is going back to Mia Wallace in Pulp Fiction, right? Where Mia Wallace gets in trouble in this film 2 years later. After a night out with John Travolta. We know that she loves cocaine.
Yeah.
We know from earlier that Vincent Vega loves heroin.
Right.
And so as Vincent Vega goes to the bathroom, she's just digging for a cigarette. She just wants another smoke. And she's digging around looking for a smoke, and what she finds is a bag of heroin that she thinks is cocaine, and it ends up fucking stopping her heart because she snorts half a baggie full of primo heroin.
Same scene, except with fingers.
Except she finds a bag of fingers. I love this scene because after the fucking Dust Devil goes to the shower and also has a conversation with the man in the mirror.
I know, which, oh my God, this is like, I love the way Richard Stanley does simultaneity, because there's actually 3 scenes going on top of each other. And it's this idea of, like, you know, sometimes the spirits are active and sometimes they're a little bit sleepy, but this night they're very active. So you've got her digging through the Dust Devil's bag, looking at the Polaroids and going, oh, these must be all the people he's met on the road. That's so cute. And she's got a little smile on her face.
Why did he put times on them too?
I know, huh? You know, that's great. But she finds his finger box and she realizes, oh fuck, he's a serial killer. Dust Devil. So that's scene 1. Scene 2 is Dust Devil talking to, like, we kind of learn that the other side of the mirror is the spirit world. And there's some interesting shit with, like, we now see the Dust Devil through a mirror and it just keeps panning back. So we see his face in this, like, black void. And he's, like, trying to reach into the mirror and just really upset with himself that he can't.
Yeah.
And we understand that his motivation is to shuffle off this stupid human body and go back to the time when he was a spirit.
Yeah.
We also have our 2 sort of spiritual detectives having the conversation about how to kill the Dust Devil.
Yes. So before she can get out, once she realizes that he has a cigar box full of fingers,
right, he
pops out of the bathroom and is like, don't look at those.
Yeah, I know. It was going so well.
Yes. And he basically he locks the door, puts on latex gloves, takes out a giant knife.
Mhm.
I don't understand the latex gloves because I'm like,
I know, right?
you aren't really ever going to be arrested.
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna be fine. But he gives her this, he corners her on the bed and basically
Yeah.
is like, you have a spark of light inside of you, and I am just the midwife to take that light out of you. All I have to do is make this like tiny little cut. Just cut you
Uh-huh.
open and I can take that out. Please let me do that. And he says, I love this line. He says, there is no good or evil, only spirit and matter.
Yeah.
It's sort of this meaningless line, but it's so solid in the sense of his character, and I love it.
Sure.
And she's like, yeah, fuck that shit, grabs the lamp and conks his head.
Yeah.
Again, Wendy, she has the knife, it hits the ground, she picks it up, points it at him like a gun, like
Oh
she's
my
keeping
God.
him at bay.
Oh my God. I was so like, girl.
And then she's like, you know what? I should make a break for it. She just drops the knife and makes a break for it. I'm like, you guys, always take the weapon. If you do not have the thing within you that says, I'm going to kill this person off. We talked about this in Flesh or what? Oh, what was the?
Oh yeah.
We talked
Like
about it.
not everybody has to murder. Like you don't have to murder somebody to stop them, because murder is a lot.
It is
but
a lot.
You can hobble them. You can tie them to something. Give yourself a bit of a like head start at least.
And at minimum, if you're not going to do either thing, harm or, hinder or kill them, take the fucking weapon with you. Just have it.
Yeah.
She doesn't. She drops the knife. There is a wrestling thing, but she manages to get free and drive off.
She like bangs his head in the door. I was like, damn, yeah, she's giving him the business. All right.
I also love that we're seeing his face turning into that demon shape. Like it's morphing.
Like when his anger comes out, he becomes more demon-like. Yeah. And it's very subtle. And I think this is why the stupid decision to put latex gloves on is because we can see his demon fingers popping up through the latex gloves.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's really small, but I was like, oh, that's okay. That's actually kind of a cool effect.
That's why. Okay. So this is where we get kind of our action sequence, I guess. On the highway, he hypnotizes a semi-trailer driver to basically bump into her head on. And she, basically rolls her car. Yeah. And then another car crashes into that. There's fuel leaking everywhere. He fucking throws
people arguing and screaming, and the cows are running, and that's just chaos. He's like, oh, you think you can get away? Here, let me just throw some chaos in your wake.
He blows the whole thing up by throwing a cigarette lighter on the burning stuff, and she just keeps clawing her way out and walking and walking and walking into like deeper into the high desert. Yeah.
And he does some witchy magic with also like, I gotta say, so we see this shot. It's kind of the movie poster of the back of his jacket has like femurs or like human bones set into like a ladder along his back. And he does some like, or his back is to the camera, and it's like, I didn't know if they had always been there or if I just hadn't noticed them, but they're anyway. He does some witchy magic, and essentially he conjures up a storm.
Yes. So we'll come back to that storm in a second, but we'll talk about our new cop duo, which is Ben and Mark.
Yep.
So Ben, our detective Ben, has gotten Mark out of jail and learns, hey, this is your wife.
Yeah.
Also, so she was staying at this motel. She had this whole journal she had been writing. This must have been left for you. And we get her whole note. Again, she's all like, I'm so sorry. You must be strong, Mark. And I'm like, lady.
Please forget me. Please. It's the kindest thing to do.
So he and Mark are tracking Wendy across the desert. And Mark, again, is getting up on his like white dude apartheid bullshit, yelling at Ben, being like, we got to keep going further in there. Get helicopters. And Ben's like, we don't have a helicopter here.
Yeah.
What type of third world country is this? Where are the cops? How can you not even care about my wife, who's so important to me? And Ben's like, listen, You don't talk to me about losing a wife. My wife left me 15 years ago when our son was killed on the border. Don't tell me shit about grief. What do you know about grief? And we don't know the specifics of how that son died, but we sort of presume that son might have been in a commando unit. That son might have been somebody who was fighting for some independence, some form of whatever, because that 15 years ago would have been when South Africa was still claiming Namibia.
Yeah.
And he decides, so this dust devil comes up. It's overtaking Wendy in the desert, but also it is overtaking Ben and Mark. And Ben says, hey, I don't need you walking around with me because I have realized I cannot trust having you with me. So he handcuffs him, or has him handcuff himself at gunpoint. Mark handcuffed to the overturned Jeep that they're in. Okay, so this is when we get into our final showdown. This is where you mentioned earlier, Cecil, that Wendy comes across this town in the sandy, flowerless desert. The whole town is a ghost town, and the houses are overrun with sand. It's beautiful and haunting. It's a really scary thing.
And I love it, like, from Wendy's point of view, she's made it through the night. You know, she literally can't crawl any farther. Like, and she wakes up in the morning and she thinks she's found civilization and realizes that what looks like civilization is empty. And she literally goes, what the fuck? Come on.
Man alive. It's so scary. But Ben also manages to track his way to this same civilization. So now we've got Ben.
Wendy meets Ben. Yeah. She literally says, is there anybody here? And Ben just walks up. And they're both kind of like, do I know you?
That was easy.
Do I know you?
He gives her a handgun. He's got a shotgun. Just a side note, earlier in the movie, there's just a brief scene where we see Ben sawing off the barrel of his shotgun while watching a documentary about orcas eating a shark.
Right? Like, again, Richard Stanley, like, he puts so much on the screen that scenes that seemingly have no, like, that aren't plot, like, they have no developing in the plot, but they tell you emotionally everything that you need to know, which is about death, killing, destruction, apocalypse, war, etc.
Okay, so we get one of our favorite visual horror tropes, which is the movie projector.
The empty theater.
Empty theater.
Listen, Jeffrey, I gotta say, like, there is nothing scarier than a place that is made to hold a lot of people when it's empty.
Yeah.
Empty malls, empty airports, empty theaters.
Yeah.
Nothing scarier.
It's really creepy. It's super, super creepy. And Ben finds his way again. Good horror, another great horror movie device, which is let's split up.
Oh, of course.
So Ben finds his way into this old cinema, and dust covered. The sunlight's just pouring in because the roof is eroded away. But this projector flashes onto him.
Turns on.
It just turns on. Another scary thing about being in the projector light is you can no longer see anything. But
it's also projecting a film of the ocean.
Yes.
So again, back to this whole thing of like, okay, what's the opposite of desert? Water.
Yeah.
But water is not like, and water being a very, in sort of spiritual terms, water is healing. We get baptized in water. Water flows. The Tao Te Ching is all about water. None of that. You get the image of water.
Yeah.
But no water.
He also starts getting images of his ex-wife.
Oh yeah. And she, oh my God, right?
Yeah.
And it's like she is on a throne like a queen. Like literally this is like tarot card. Like she's, dressed almost in like what would be like a native, tribal queen garb.
Yeah.
And he's sort of reaching out for her. But in fact, gets his photo taken by the Dust Devil.
He do.
In the half light.
The film breaks and flap, 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 flap,
Yep.
bright white light, and then we hear the sound of applause, which I found
know, right?
really creepy.
What's applause and
laughter? Yeah,
it's so weird. Like why are why are theaters haunted, or why do we think theaters are haunted? Which is this idea that anytime humans have a strong emotion, they leave a bit of that emotion behind. It's why houses are haunted. Somebody had an experience there that was so terrible that a piece of them sunk into the wood and the pipes and the carpet and the ceiling fan and affected the physical things around them spiritually.
Yeah.
And I think theaters have that same kind of charged energy. So if you have that many people rolling through, experiencing high laughs and low tears, they leave a piece of that behind, and the Dust Devil is able to amplify that.
Yeah. Outside the movie theater, we have Ben and the Dust Devil in a showdown, and Dust Devil wins the showdown by driving that giant fucking knife up through Ben's gut. This is when Wendy shows up with the handgun. I love this. The Dust Devil is like, yeah, that gun doesn't work. Well, first he's like, you got the safety on. So she turns off the safety.
Yeah. And he's like not even looking at her. He's like, you have to turn. It's by the hammer. You just have to,
And then she starts firing it, and he's like, I think what is it? He just like telepathically can make it not work. I don't remember what.
Well, no,
he took the bullets out.
Yeah, Ben took the bullets out of the gun so that way Mark couldn't shoot him. And that's when Ben was like, I've lived too long to let fuck ups like you be the one to kill me. So I took your bullets.
Yeah, that's right. So he starts to like step toward her.
Yeah.
And we've already seen that like Ben is not moving. Like Ben is fully
he's been
done.
Stabbed in the gut. He's like, he's
out. And so this is the trickery, right?
Yeah.
He effectively played dead in front of the wild animal.
Yeah.
Play dead. Like be bigger than the bear or play dead, depending on the type of bear. This type of bear, you play dead. And he plays dead. And as Dust Devil steps toward her, Ben whips out that Kiri, and it's right under his foot, and this dude cannot move. He gets wide-eyed like, oh shit. Yeah. She picks up Ben's shotgun and kablooies his head to smithereens.
Oh my god, this is like an amazing piece of practical special effects, this death. Because it explodes.
Like explodes.
And it's like, it's the way it's shot. It's also like just the pure amount of viscera that comes off of this. Like, it is not a watermelon on a stick.
No.
Like, it looks grody.
So gross. Also, I should have mentioned during the freezing moment, and you see the awareness that she's got the shotgun. Yeah. He is stuck. He about to die. And he says, it's slowed down too. The audio is slowed and lowered. And he's like, I love you.
I know. And she has that look, now she becomes the hero, and she has that look of, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Like, the look that she gives him with that shotgun is priceless.
Yeah. So,
but oh no, Ben is now dead. The Dust Devil is now dead, and Wendy just leaves.
She just leaves. She didn't hear about burning that root. No, nope. She did not.
There's a step 2. Don't feed the gremlins after midnight.
That's right.
Don't get them wet.
So she starts walking across the desert. She passes the Jeep where Mark is handcuffed. Yeah. He's like, Wendy, you're here. Save me. She just points the gun at him.
Yeah.
Doesn't say anything, but her whole vibe says, you shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
But I'm not here for you because I'm not Wendy anymore. I am Dust Devil. You're not ready to die in the way that I need you to die.
Well, he has hope. He has that he is of the world. He's not done with the world. And
and he sees his wife, who he wants back for whatever reason, to control her or whatever, but he can see what looks to be his wife. Yeah. So he's full of hope. And she just turns around and is like, nope. Bye. Walks to the highway, does the same gesture as our Dust Devil at the
like
beginning.
shot for shot.
Shot for shot, laser ear on the concrete. This time, what is coming is not just a simple like Bentley sedan.
Mhm.
It is a whole lineup.
It's like a military cavalcade.
Yeah, Caspiers are what these are
Mhm.
called. Caspiers. They may just be called Caspers, Casspirs. But these are just troop transports. These
Yeah.
are military troop transports, which means you've got half a dozen of these things driving. Who knows how many soldiers are
Right.
inside like cattle.
Yeah.
And she
also,
does hypno
he's
hand
now
gesture.
like the Dust Devil is now wearing the body of a woman.
Yeah.
And listen, let's just say that a bunch of, you know, dehumanized soldiers encountering a woman in a beautiful woman in a torn dress on the side of the road. Chances are this is not going to be a Disney friendly sequel.
No, and she is going to, and also she's got army men at her control under her hypnotism now.
Yeah.
So we get a final thing of Joe, our narrator, saying, you know, the desert knows her name now. And it basically, Joe's kind of like, honestly, it's just cycle of life. Dust Devil must keep moving to survive.
Yeah.
And that is where we end our film.
Well, and I love the last shot is with Joe, sort of our white magician, you know,
our good magician,
you know, our good magician, and he has lit up his compound, his house, and it's this very like white lights, white rocks. Like he knows that the Dust Devil is on the move, and so, you know, like it's just kind of nice that like in a movie that is so film noir Western, there is a sense of there is still good in the world.
Yep.
And all the good can do is just leave the candle burning, try to keep the bad out, but you can't actually destroy evil. You can only hope to avoid it.
Yeah. Well, let us rate this film. How approachable is this movie if you are horror film averse on our Sasha scale of the approachability, squeamish approachability scale for the horror averse, where 1 is the least approachable, like really scary, don't go near this, and a 10 is super green light, you can do this. I'd give Dust Devil like 6 blood spirals out of 10. Like it's more like a supernatural thriller with some horror devices in it, but like the biggest hurdle in this movie, besides some like trigger warnings around domestic violence and suicidal ideation, is it's just the body parts. Like you see the aftermath of this serial killer style of murder, like ritual murder, like slicing up legs and arms. You don't actually see murders really in this movie other than the final blow up the Dust Devil's head. But so I would say like this is a movie kind of in the vein of something like Seven, police officers,
or Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, something in that realm where you see the aftermath of things.
And that's even worse, Jeffrey, because then your imagination goes, has to be like, how the fuck did he make a human body into this?
Yeah. So this movie is less scary than it is like tense, and it's forthright in showing you the aftermath of people getting chopped up. So that's what I'd say. I'd give it 6 out of 10 on approachability. As a horror film, Cecil, what do you say?
Well, in the canon of horror films, this one is one of my favorites. I think when I discovered this movie, you know, when you love something like film or music or art or whatever, you go down rabbit holes and you try to, you know, you seek out things that you like, and sometimes you get stymied for a bit. And I remember seeing this film at a time when I thought that I had encountered all the good films in the world. And then it's so exciting to find a completely fresh voice, a unique voice that, you know, this has got Clive Barker fingerprints. This has got so many, like the films that I love, the horror films that I love. This is not an imitator, but like a true original, doing a film, making a thing in a genre that is, it just seems so fresh.
Yeah.
Like the way he approaches magic, the way he approaches his characters, the way he approaches what is on the screen. To me, I just blew me away.
Yeah.
So it's now a few years later, and I'm watching this film again, and you know what? Holds up.
Yeah.
It still holds up.
Don't
I don't know. Let's say 8 out of 10 demon destroying shivs.
shivs. Yeah, I was gonna say, don't let, when I went to go download this movie and watch it, I was like, oh no, Rotten Tomatoes 29%.
Yeah,
Fuck. And this is one of those movies that it has a lot of problems. Like structurally, it's all over the map. A lot of images don't fully hit or connect.
It's a very loose movie.
It's very loose.
There is a lot of silence. Like I remember showing the trailer to a friend of ours. We're like, hey, we're gonna have movie night. And I'm like, let's watch the trailer. And he's like, this looks like some art house bullshit. And it is a little bit of art house bullshit. Like it is not a tightly plotted, like it is, there's some loose in which you're like, what am I looking at?
Yeah.
Why is the scene taking 12 minutes?
Yeah. But yeah, I'm with you. I think I encourage you to go watch this film, because I think there's a lot in it that's really unique, really interesting. And again, 90 minutes, under 90 minutes. So right? It's not like we're asking you to say like, go check out this 3 hour and 45-minute art house film that's got some pacing problems. You can do 90 minutes. Well, let's figure out what movie we will watch next. Cecil, you have a scare die. I have a style die. We'll roll those dice, match them up, see what movie comes out of that. If you roll a 1, Cecil, our next scare. Oh, what did I do here? Hold on just a second here. Okay, sorry. Let me reset that. Cecil, if you roll a 1, our next scare is witchy. If you roll a 2, alien. 3, lady killer, meaning a killer who is a lady. 4, tiny blank. 5, our scare is vampire. 6, it is zombie. What is our scare, Cecil?
That's a 5.
We're going to do vampire.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to match up vampire with the style that I roll. If I roll a 1, our next movie's got to be found footage. 2, it's got to be action fantasy, something that bends genre a little bit. 3, 1970s. 4, an anthology film. 5, a wild card, whatever vampire movie we want. And 6, Euro horror. So let's see what our style is. I got a 4, anthology, vampire.
Oh, unique.
That is interesting. Okay. So we've got vampire, anthology. So I pulled up a couple on here, and then we'll check our Letterboxd to see what our users think, to what our Letterboxd followers thought would fit the genre. But there's a 1963 horror anthology called Black Sabbath.
Yes.
That looks pretty dope.
Classic.
Yes, very, very, very classic. That's got some vampire action in it.
Mm-hmm.
I also understand VHS, the first VHS anthology's got some vampire in it.
It's like a vampire. It's very vampire energy, whether it's actually a vampire or not, but I definitely put it on there.
Okay. We've also got Dead of Night. Did you put this on here?
I did. This is another one that like it is. Oh gosh. I gotta bring this up now. It's another anthology film that probably features a vampire. I've not seen it, but doing a cursory research for this, I was like, yeah, it sounds like a vampire might be in one of these horror films. So there you go. There's not a lot of like vampires in anthology horror.
Yeah, it's a little thin. Well, I will say that on our Letterboxd, Brave Crab also suggested Dead of Night from 1977.
Okay,
so
great.
Maybe they have some knowledge that there is vampire in there as well.
Yeah, great.
We've also got The House That Dripped Blood.
Great.
Is one, again, 1971. I have not seen this movie. This is this like Hammer horror sort of?
Yeah, like
era?
It's similar to Black Sabbath. It's going to be very Hammer horror, British horror, Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, like the whole gang.
We've also got, in that same vein from 1960s, is Dr. Terror's House of Horrors.
Yeah,
came up as well.
Either.
Okay,
this one's
so
in black and white too.
Yeah, this is interesting.
Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, Donald Sutherland. Ooh, actually, this one looks really good.
I'm sensing we've got a lot of like 60s, 70s sort of options
Yeah.
here in that Hammer horror vein.
Yeah.
Josh Ludd on Letterboxd points out Night Thirst from 2002. Do you know this movie?
Not at all.
I'm gonna pull up Night Thirst and see what we've got here. Night Thirst. Oh, it's got a very trade paperback horror cover for it.
Okay.
This is, let's see here. I don't have a. It's the Polonia Brothers horror anthology is the only description I have on Just
Okay.
Watch.
And even Josh Ludd is like vampires, zombies, aliens, demons?
Hard to say.
Yeah.
All right, so that looks pretty dope. That's a movie I haven't heard of. That looks very like matinee B movie. Could be really fun. Sort of movie.
Like I think like we have 4 major contenders that are all essentially of the same era, of the same type. Black
Dead
Sabbath,
of Night.
Dead of Night,
Yeah.
The House That Dripped Blood, Dr. Terror's House of Horrors. And I think out of them, I've seen Black Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty good one. I've not seen the others. So, but really, it's anthology horror. And what I love about anthology horror is that they're short. It's like you just get a couple. It's like going, you get like a sampler,
right?
An appetizer sampler,
right? So we've got Just Watch has done some new redesign where they just say like, what if I put an ad right over the synopsis? So I will not read you the synopsis for that. Maybe Just Watch has it. Yeah, 5 strangers board a train joined by a mysterious fortune teller who offers to read their tarot cards. That's what we were talking about, right? Dr. Terror's House of Horrors.
Yeah.
And then we get the 5 separate stories unfold. I think this is the way to go.
I just love the title, Dr. Terror's House of Horror. Like it's so itself, it has been parodied of itself.
Yeah. Well, let's do that. Let's do Dr. Terror's House of Horrors. I love it. Well, thank you all for listening. Thank you, Cecil, for talking with me. And if you have thoughts on Dust Devil or ideas for other movies that would have been good vampires in a horror anthology, let us know on Instagram or Twitter at randomhorror9, and watch Dr. Terror's House of Horrors from 1965 with us this week. And come on back next Tuesday for a new episode. Have a restful night with no severed fingers in your carry-on bag or nothing. Boo.
Boo.